In this video, I'm going to talk about the 3 best teaching strategies that I think are the best for various aspects of linguistics. The first strategy is phoneme identity, which falls under the category of phonology. The second strategy is wordplay, which falls under the category of morphology. And finally, the third strategy is semantic maps, which falls under semantics. One teaching strategy to support phonology development that I would like to implement is phoneme identity. Phoneme identity requires students to recognize, identify, and match the same sound in a series of different words. For example, I could ask the students, what is the same in the words bat, bag, and bed, and write the sentence on the board. I would want students to answer that the sound B is the same in all the letters. By having students complete this activity, it will give them practice with understanding the meaning of the words in English, hearing and naming the phoneme in English, and articulating the individual sound of the phoneme. I like this because it allows students to listen to the sounds of the language and work together as a class. Students can also practice writing their own sentences, that way they can get familiar with what sounds are produced by what letters. This includes the 4 categories that make a well-rounded and accommodating activity. The first is reading, so students have to read the sentence written on the board. Writing, they have to write their own sentences to get familiar with what sounds are produced by what letters. Listening, students have to listen to the sounds. And finally, speaking. Students have to practice saying the sound that is the same. The second activity is teaching through wordplay. One great way to practice prefixes is through vocabulary games. Since I will be teaching students in elementary school, the best way to get them to learn and to be engaged is through games. By having games that are slightly competitive, they will challenge students, leading them to be motivated to win and, most importantly, learn. One example of a vocabulary game is Vocabulary Millionaire. In this game, students are divided into 2 groups, and one student is selected to be the host. Students are to take out their vocabulary word cards, and the host is given the words and the definitions. Students will stand next to their desk, and the host will announce words and go down the row for students to provide the correct definition and spelling. In addition, if the student is unsure of the definition, he or she may use a lifeline to ask another group member for assistance, but only once per game. Students have the option to write the spelling word down if they need to see it visually. If the answer is correct, then they remain standing, but if it is wrong, then the student is out. The last team with the student standing wins. When I become a practicing teacher, I will definitely use this game with my students because it is engaging and motivates students to learn words and their parts. This also includes the 4 categories that makes a well-rounded activity, and it is accommodating to all students. The first is reading, because the host has to read the words to the students. Writing, because students have to write down the spelling word. Listening, students have to listen to the words being said by the host. And finally, speaking. Students have to give the correct spelling and definition. Semantic maps are webs of words that will help students identify, recall, and understand the meanings of words that they see. This map can be created online or on a sheet of paper, where students first focus on spelling the word, placing it in the middle of the web, and then pronunciation if necessary. Next, students will look back at the text and see the surrounding words that may relate to their main word, and then place those around the word web. Then, define the word and find phrases or pictures to put in the map for students to have a visual representation. This map could be compared with other students' maps, or other students could go back and find words in the text to make sure they understand the word. These maps could be used for all types of words, phrases, or topics that students need further assistance with. I will also encourage students to keep these maps in a file or in their notebook, that way they are able to reference back to them. I like this strategy because it gives students a visual to follow along with. This also includes the 4 strategies in categories that makes a well-rounded activity accommodating. The first is reading, so students have to read the text and look for the words. Writing, students have to write phrases and make the map. Listening, students have to listen to other people's maps and their definitions and pronunciations. And finally, speaking. Students can compare maps and share ideas with friends. Overall, these teaching strategies that I have stated accommodate to students a variety of ways in which they will learn.